There are several different perspectives to understand the blockchain's value, one of which is by knowing the role it plays in the context of next generation web, namely Web 3.0. There are several challenges we may face building a decentralized web, and let's figure out how blockchain can fix them and why DApps will require the decoupling of AMP and data. At last, I wish you are able to form a new blockchain investment model by looking at a picture larger than smart contract. The outline of this episode will be: first, next web will be decentralized. Second, blockchain as the incentive layer and the truth layer. The third, how decentralized ID works. The fourth, from AMP to DApp, a paradigm shift. So let's get started. Technology always moves humanity forward and empowers individuals. We see a clear clue of decentralization in the history. 1943, somebody from IBM said 5 computers would be enough for the whole world to use, and everybody was expected to connect to them with her dumb terminal. Obviously, Apple and Microsoft did not buy this, and the rest was history. The picture here comes from an early Apple advertisement with a lady holding a hammer to smash the monopoly of IBM. The right side shows Apple II, one of the early personal computers that many people really know about. A side note, Microsoft did not start the PC revolution, Apple did. Similarly, corporations were reluctant to use the newly born internet with low security, no censorship, and full of drug dealers and porn. That's why they tried to build a global intranet and keep it pure by tight control. In reality, the public internet won at last because innovation happens when there is enough freedom. It was not just hardware that got decentralized, software too. Microsoft made huge profit by selling software copies, but after 2000, with the rise of so-called internet companies like Google and Facebook, selling software is no longer so common. Google offers its software for free, while instead make use of users' data to make a profit. The main goal for the decentralization of the web is to set up digital property rights there and let the users own their own data. That is to decentralize data ownership. Therefore, data can be traded freely and the economy will boom. The current web falls deep in the centralization hole. Facebook plus Google mean a large part of many people's web. We need to first get into their walled gardens to be able to use the web. I like those companies because they are much better than the earlier systems, but the things has to be changed to stop them to be the next dictators. When the web was born, it was totally decentralized. It was expected to empower individuals and clear out the social hierarchy. But current reality is the monopolies are getting stronger. So what's the problem here? To put it simply, the current web lacks an effective way to incentivize people and keeping truth. Blockchain will fill the gap by providing the truth layer and incentive layer for the web. Let's first figure out why a truth layer is indispensable. Firstly, the web needs immutable data at the root of trust. The web has no way to store data for itself. Data must be saved in someone's database, which can neither stop tampering nor allow others to verify if the data is tampered or not. Therefore, some say there are only data on web, no truth. And what is root of trust? When we visit google.com, we trust it is Google, since DNS system is secure enough to prevent attackers from faking the domain, usually. Here, DNS system is the root of trust. When we use HTTPS, we believe the certificates are not faked because we trust the organization, namely the CA, that issued the certificates. CAs are here the root of trust. Web 3.0 will use blockchain as root of trust. DNS and CAs for Web 3.0 will be based on blockchain and its immutable data. It's ridiculous now that the Web 2.0 root of trust is actually organizations that are nothing more than a small group of strangers. But blockchain follows the principle that in mass we trust. There is no one to trust. All you need is to trust the mass. In a nutshell, blockchain means everybody on Earth can hold a copy of the data. People reach a consensus following clear mathematical rules to make sure the data is not tampered. Secondly, with the truth layer, we can implement self-executed rules. In real world, court is there to enforce the law by punishing evil. With truly trustworthy data, we can now first time in history let the software to execute real-world rules automatically. That is the idea behind the smart contract. If you want to check real-world projects, you can check Novos to know more about the idea of crypto court, and check Ethereum and many others to know more about smart contracts. We will not talk much here, since we will be focusing on the next web. That's why the truth layer is so important. And now, let's move on to make it clear why incentive layer is also indispensable. Firstly, a decentralized system must be able to run by itself. Remember, in this centralized world, there is no company to provide servers for us. Then there has to be some way to incentivize users to share their own hardware resources to save or process data for strangers. Fortunately, we have coins on blockchain for this. Some people call blockchain distributed ledger. Digital coins running on it brings an incentive layer for the web. Secondly, blockchain is able to align the interests of all parties and motivate everyone work towards the same goal. Old-time democracy usually resulted in a mob. People got rid of one tyrant and got 1,000 in return. But on blockchain, the democracy is based on contribution. It's different from the one person, one vote schema. If you contributed nothing, you don't get a vote. Thirdly, coins can be used to avoid the abuse of public resources. A lot of the Web 2.0 infrastructures can be used free of charge. Bad guys therefore are able to abuse them to send email spam or DDoS attacks. One of the ancestors of Bitcoin is Hashcash. It was designed to prevent such abuse. With blockchain, we can give all the resources a small price. Normal users won't feel it, but the spammers will find it too expensive to send thousands emails a time. Now is the point we conclude the importance of truth layer and incentive layer. Without the two, there is no way the web can be decentralized. The next generation web will be decentralized. Therefore, digital identity, ID for short, will be decentralized as well. What exactly is ID? Why should it be decentralized? Will the concept of login still be relevant for the decentralized web, and most importantly, how decentralized ID works. Let's take a glimpse of the future. A simple question first. What is ID? In digital world, a user's ID is made of everything she says, does, and experiences. Your ID is more than your username and password. For example, my GitHub username is HappyPeter. HappyPeter is my ID identifier, and password is a secret key to prove that I own my ID. But it's very different from a private key, which we'll talk about later. So, HappyPeter is not my ID. It's the identifier of my ID. My ID is me in digital form, a virtual me. ID is everything that defines me, all the personal data generated by technology. Today, digital representation of an ID is a mix of data fragmented across many apps and services. You don't own your ID. Large commercial entities like Google or Facebook owns it. Now it's time to ask a serious question. Why do we need decentralized ID? The answer is quite simple. Users need to control their own data. Let's first make it clear that what is a decentralized ID? What are the key differences between a decentralized ID and a current centralized one? Currently, my Facebook ID is owned by Facebook. The ID identifier and all the personal data that goes with it is stored in Facebook's databases. However, a decentralized ID is not owned by anybody but you. It is user-generated, self-owned, with a globally unique identifier rooted in blockchain. Every user needs an ID that she truly owns. She will be in control of her own data and able to decide what she shares, who she shares with, and when to stop sharing. A decentralized ID system is still not widely deployed, so it's hard to say what's the final solution. But we can clearly see a lot of consensus has gathered around the W3C DID, and people are collaborating on platforms like DRF with members like Microsoft, IBM, VBank, and also blockchain projects like Ethereum, Batum, Blockstack, etc. User first need to generate her ID identifier, a username in the decentralized world. Currently, cell phone number or email addresses or social network usernames are widely used to log in our daily apps. They are nice identifiers in that they are really human-friendly. But the problem is that they are centralized and given by other providers and can be removed by them. If you use a decentralized system like Blockstack, your ID identifier will be generated on blockchain with W3C DID data syntax. However, decentralized ID identifier is not human-friendly. I can no longer use something like HappyPeter. DID identifiers usually is much longer, like shown here. Due to the Zuku's triangle, DID is hard to make human-friendly. Binding an easy-to-remember username to the DID in a real secure and decentralized way is harder than it looks. The decentralized world has no server at all. Users are responsible to save their own data. Blockchain projects like Ethereum is like a mainframe trying to save all the user data on the chain. But considering how much data a user using her social app can generate, many people are now prefer a layered solution. That is only saving the most important root of trust data on-chain, while users' actual identity data resides encrypted off-chain. Users will store data at their own devices or their own controlled cloud spaces. Preferably, it will be blockchain-backed decentralized storage method, say IPFS, or Blockstack's Gaia system. because these are not controlled by any commercial entity and is immune to censorship. Or you can still use Google or Microsoft's cloud services as long as you do enough backup. All your data is encrypted, so nobody knows what's inside. Every DID has its own public key also saved on blockchain, and the user uses the private key to do authentication and authorization. Even you are not a cryptography expert and have no idea about how digital signatures work, it's not hard to understand how people can sign with their private key to prove that they are associated with a DID in some way, and they have the right to do something. But authenticating by signing is not like the traditional logging in. Bitcoin developer Peter told one site, if you are logging in, it's centralized. Traditionally, my username and password are stored in the AMP's database. The logging in is actually asking the AMP if I can come in. But now, with the decentralized way, I don't need to stay logging in at all. Whenever I need to prove my right to do something, I sign with my private key. Also, I sign to authorize people how they can access my data. Say, I can allow all my friends to view my posts and my collaborators to edit the documentation I shared with them. Everything can be done in a fine-grained way. That's how decentralized ID works. Web 3.0 will experience a AMP design paradigm shift. We will switch from a AMP-centered to a user-centered paradigm. And this is very important for the decentralization of the web. For centralized web, data and AMP are tightly bound together. If you use Facebook, your ID is saved in Facebook database. There is no good way to get all your data out, and no point to do so, since other AMPs won't be able to parse the data due to the incompatible format. However, in the decentralized world, there is this huge paradigm shift. AMP design will be user-centered rather than AMP-centered. By saying user-centered to a large extent, it means different AMPs will be designed based on one single user ID. User will hold their own data. At the same time, my friends and I share the same format with all our social networking data because we all follow an open standard. And the connections among us is also part of our ID and are not saved with some specific AMP. AMPs will switch role from the rule maker to pure tools for the user, saving and parsing data following the standard format. This way, users are in charge of the whole game and have the freedom to exit. Which means if I don't like the social AMP A, I can switch to AMP B without losing any of my data and all the connections with my friends. Because everything is saved in our ID, following the same standard. All the AMPs will be able to parse the data. Think about the Bitcoin P2P network. You can write a client yourself with whatever features you like. As long as you respect the protocol of the network, you will still be able to connect to other peer clients. That's what I mean by a user-centered design paradigm. And we will see a shift from AMP in charge to protocol in charge schema as well. Now the situation is big companies try their best to maintain a great AMP so that they can hold user data and make all the money. That's how monopolies are born. Since once you build AMP people love, all your competitors are cut out. But the future is different because what's important is the open standards and protocols. Users hold their own data. All the ID data follows the same format. All the AMPs connect with each other with the open protocol. forming a fair market for all developers. The paradigm shift brings a benefit that users become first-class citizens and are not dictated by some app. Therefore, they are free to use their data whenever and wherever they want, in whatever way. To understand the paradigm shift is key to understand the decentralization of the web and how DApp works. That's almost I want to share for this episode. And lastly, I want to stress on a few points. Firstly, Web 3.0 will be a trustworthy web. All the infrastructure bearing their root of trust in blockchain, benefiting from its data immutability to form a trustless system. Web 2.0 is not trustworthy itself. All the trust is from some organization. Secondly, DApps will be part of the web. They will be community-driven. Companies will still build DApps in order to provide their services, but since apps don't be able to hold user data, so companies will see them very differently. Thirdly, user ID won't be fragmented into different apps. Data formats will follow some open standards, and all the apps trying to parse the data will have to follow the standards as well. Lastly, if you want to check real-world Web 3.0 infrastructure and DApps, go to blogstack.org for more resources. Thank you.